Okay, so let's start with public meetings. So we're going to start with, we would like to begin by acknowledging that the land on which we gather is traditional unceded territory of the Mi'kmaq peoples. This territory is covered by the treaties of peace and friendship, which Wolastoq and Mi'kmaq peoples, Massapawli peoples, first signed with the British Crown in 1726. The treaties did not deal with surrender of lands and resources, but in fact recognized Mi'kmaq and Wolastoqic title and established the rules for what was to be an ongoing relationship between nations. Thank you. Okay, so we want to welcome everyone to our first meeting tonight, which is dealing with boards and committees. So I guess we really don't have an established pattern for how we're going to deal with this. So maybe why don't we just go on down the line? How does council? We just go on down the line from each one and see what we want to do with each. Does that work for everybody? Okay, we're gonna, I suppose, right, okay, so, yeah, before we get to the actual boards and committees, we'll go through the process of adopting the agenda. We can do the reaffirmation of office too. So let's begin with that. Okay, do we hereby accept the office of council and will diligently, faithfully, and impartially discharge, to the best of our ability, the duties of the office as may be imposed upon us by law. Next, we need to adopt the agenda. Are there any deletions or additions? Okay, on the question, do we have a mover first?
I move that the agenda is accepted as presented.
Seconder?
I'll second it.
Excuse me, on the question? All those in favor? Okay, it's adopted. Are there any conflicts of interest? And ask council members to closely check to see if there are any conflicts of interest. As you come upon them, if you see one that you think might be a conflict of interest, then you can let us know at that time, because there's quite a few committees, et cetera, so.
If I may, Your Worship?
Yeah.
Am I in conflict of interest being on the Crime Stoppers unit?
If we get to that one specifically, I would say yes, because there's,
Yeah.
there's remuneration.
Yeah.
So,
Okay.
yeah.
There's no remuneration, just a mileage, I believe, when council members are on a committee.
Well, compensation, it's still money. So I'm not sure, I'm not, completely knowledgeable of conflict of interest laws. I do know that if it puts money in one's pocket, then they're probably in conflict of interest. Okay, so let's move on to, again, just conflicts of interest. Be your own judge on that, but better to be safe than sorry, as they say. Okay, so next we go to the board's review and appointments. So I don't remember being involved in one of these in the last term. So in terms of how we would go about doing this, I guess we just go on down the line and see if there are ones that we wish to remove, ones that council wishes to change in some way. So let's see if we can get through this relatively quickly. We've had a couple of long meetings, and I think it would be, if we tried to maybe have less conversation going back and forth, not that we can't speak, but it would be nice if we could move on with these since we only have an hour. So the first one is the EMO Planning Committee. No committees established or no EMO coordinator appointed. So is this different than the EMO Standing Committee? Are they two separate?
Well, the EMO committee is comprised of a group of individuals. It's usually not council, because if there's an emergency measures that's declared, council has their role as a council, but not as the coordinator or the people inside the EOC center that actually run the operations. So that's where but what the committee for council, there is in the regulation of the Emergency Measures Act, there is a requirement for council members to be on a standing committee, and their role is to make sure that the EMO thing is set up, that, you know, not personally, but they take the responsibility to make sure that's being moved forward, that the appointments are made, that there's people at the table. So they kind of take that role versus them actually being the EOC operators.
So is council interested in establishing then the planning committee? We don't have one established or no EMO coordinator appointed. I'll tell you what, why don't we come back to that one? That one's a little bit more complicated. Let's just go in the EMO standing committee, that would be me now and Councilor Carmichael. She's staying on that, so. Everyone has a, okay with that? Yeah, okay. Fire committee, quarterly meetings, all council, the fire deputy chief and captains, and Nicole. So that one takes care of itself as well, correct? Looks like it does. Beldoon Joint Health and Safety Committee, it is not active. It has, you can see the people who are, so is this one that we should make active, or is it one that's sort of superfluous? In other words, we just, we don't really need it.
Again, that's set up through the Occupational Health and Safety, the committee, and there is a policy in place for that as well. You do need employee representation, as well as you need the employer representation. So the employer being the council, it would require one member, and whoever that is could speak to Nicole Carrier, who usually takes the lead on setting up meetings and things like that, and to get that up and moving again. One example would be the COVID stuff that we're talking about. I mean, from an employer perspective, it should have fell kind of under here to make sure the right policies and things were in place for that. So that would require just an employer representative, whichever one of council or the mayor felt that that would be a role they would like to play.
Ferguson's inbox to do, perhaps get in touch with an employee or put forth the name of employee.
I think your employee side is okay. It's the employer side that we really have to fill right now, because it was the previous mayor.
I can take that on if no one else is interested on it.
Is anyone else besides Councilor Carmichael interested in taking on that role with that committee? It's yours. Okay. Okay. I think it's simple as that, I guess. Beldoon Economic Development Task Force, this was put on quite a long time ago. They're not active, but not officially dissolved. I don't know, I'll let council speak to whether or not you guys think that that should remain. Many of them have resigned. I don't know if those are still on the list, did not or did officially resign, but some passed in a resignation paper, I believe. Anyway, I'll pass that over to council. You guys can chat that over for a minute and see what you want to do.
When we did have it, it didn't seem to advance very much. I don't know if you remember the meetings we had with them. I don't know if it's required but I'm okay either way if we do it or not. I just didn't feel that there was a lot happening, or maybe at the beginning, the first couple of months, we got a list of ideas, but the ideas didn't go very far.
Anyone else?
Yes, if I may, Your Worship. We have some very prominent people within the village of Beldoon, being the Port of Beldoon, NB Power. Even the sawmill has attended some of these meetings. The economic development of Beldoon will be directed by them in the future. They are more than capable of developing anything that looks prosperous and come to our community. So personally, I would say that this committee should be dissolved and will allow the Economic Development Committee be basically the people involved in directing economic development within our community.
Okay, can we get 3 ayes for dissolving this committee?
Aye.
Aye.
Just for operation-wise and the procedure-wise, once you go through this list, actually, and everything is decided in terms of council appointments or outside appointments, this would probably come forward to your next regular meeting as a full report with everybody's name who has been appointed, and then you would do it by one motion. If it's dissolved, that would be a separate motion, so we would ratify this all at your next regular council meeting by motions. Okay?
So I think this is one of those, most of us agree that probably has outlived its usefulness, I think. So if we'll bring that to the next meeting to dissolve. The next one is sort of in the same, in that they had a little bit of a tough time, I think, getting people, and then Councillor Corn went out and recruited some people, and he was able to fill the docket. You see the names there. I'm not sure again if what council thinks, but I guess at this one, either we keep it, we dissolve it, but we would probably need to fill quite a bit of the names that are there now, I'm assuming. So, what does council think?
I personally believe that we should move forward with this advisory committee, and I think that if there has to be a representative from us, maybe it's something that Daryl can take on, considering he's the health and wellness, and the youth in the area could use a little direction probably. So I don't think that this should be dissolved. I think this should stay, but let's revamp it somehow.
Okay, do we have any?
I was just wondering, what was originally the purpose? Is just to find out what the youth wanted to see happen in the village? Well, the names listed here, these are adults. So I'm just wondering, why wouldn't we get Daryl, say, to go up and have a selection of youth at the school? Go up and have the meeting there at the school once a month with a select group of kids. Yeah. That would be great.
You could work with their student council. There's a teacher representative, and they have a student council. So if there are ideas that it's forming a relationship. So if Daryl takes the initiative, but I don't think this committee ever worked. So it's dissolve it and find another way to make it work.
Okay, well, we have some differing ideas. How do we want to go with this? We've got the idea that you dissolve it, but you just start it up again. It's almost the same. Revamping is almost the same as we dissolve it, but we think it has merit. So perhaps we start it again, because most of the names there, and some of those their names there, probably like Emily is still in high school. She would, if she wanted to, she could still take part. But some of them have moved on, and some of them probably wouldn't be all that interested. So, yeah.
Schools is one of my portfolios, so if I can act as a liaison between teachers at DRHS, JRS, and BHS to see what interest there is from those schools in participating in some kind of committee or whatever. But I wouldn't be as formal as this type of thing, but if you can work with the student councils, I don't think a structured committee worked in this case. In terms of time or whatever. So I would be willing to work with schools as part of my portfolio to see if there's any interest in meeting with the students, meeting with their guidance counselor or student council members to see if there's something that they would like to see. And it doesn't have to be a formal meet once a month, every 2 months, whatever. It's just a informal get together with those groups to see if there's anything that they would like council to work on.
Does that work?
Yeah, no, I just see that beside it, it says a bylaw, so I haven't read the bylaw, but I'd be interested to see what it says. But no, I agree, Cynthia, that's a great idea.
Okay,
So we would then dissolve this one and just, okay.
Okay, so that looks like that's what we're gonna do with that one. The Beldoon Finance Committee. Well, that was easy. The Beldoon Community Events Committee. Okay, revised in July by new council. So, go ahead, Marilyn, you would know more about this than I.
Yeah, there just has to be some amendments, some changes in positions. Kayla is now the co-chair, and Susan Furlot is the secretary. And I'm replacing Councillor Killorn, and Daryl remains, if that's okay with everybody.
Okay,
Sorry, can I have some issues, concerns about the way this committee, I don't think it functions as well as it was intended to. And I understand the Beldoon Days and Canada Day as falling under the umbrella of a committee. But I think initially those committees were established because of staff issues, right? All of those events fell under Clerk Treasurer Cormier and Administrative Assistant Carrier. And I think it was enlarged a few years ago or whatever to add the seniors dinners and those types of things. I think Daryl probably would be able to handle Beldoon Days and Canada Day and recruit the volunteers needed, because most of those events are handled by volunteer organizations anyway. And I think as far as the seniors dinners and breakfasts go, those should be left to service groups in our community. That's where we get the most impact and the most benefit for council to put on a seniors dinner. The seniors get a lovely dinner, but those could be fundraisers for service groups like Ladies Auxiliary or the CWL or other not-for-profit groups in the community. I think that would serve the community better than having a Beldoon events committee that doesn't really, it doesn't generate any revenue for any of the service committees or that type of thing. And I think if we opened it up to those groups, it would be of more benefit. And I think that was the intent originally for those dinners anyway.
okay, do any other council members?
The event committee, well, we used to be separate before. We did this because the people that were doing the seniors dinners back, weren't doing them anymore. So, and then we hit COVID, and since this committee's been formed, we've had COVID. So it's been difficult to run anything you plan, you have to take it back. I felt it would have worked fairly well if we would have had a chance to work, but with COVID, it was very difficult. It is very difficult.
Councillor Burke or Deputy Mayor Burke or Councillor Carrier, any thoughts?
I think that a lot of the committees or groups that you're referring to, I don't think that they have the volunteers and the people to put it on anymore, and I think that we'll be missing out. I think that if there's a group of people in our community who are willing to volunteer and put events on, I think that's great, and currently there are, so I think that it serves the committee well. I do think that if there was a less formal way of running the committee, I think that that could be something looked at. I think that if there was also things done as fundraisers to be able to put money back into the pot to have more things and more things going on in our community, that I think that should be included in there as well. But with COVID, yeah, it's hard to put anything on right now. But I know from being at the last meeting, there's going to be some nice changes. If and when we can do Beldoon Days again, we have some ideas that were put forward that are going to make some nice additions to our Beldoon Days festival. So I'm hoping to see that continue.
Okay, so, I mean, the impression I'm getting is that the majority wish it to remain as it is, correct? Is that what I'm understanding? Okay, so, the Beldoon Community Events Committee then will stay as is and carry on. Okay. The Beldoon Port Authority. Now, before we get into this one, I know Mr. Carroll was hoping to come here on the 4th. and he was doing a presentation, and part of it was gonna be on the person that they were gonna choose, or they had some criteria that they were gonna ask us to consider. So before we tackle this one, why don't we wait on Mr. Caron to come and do his presentation? Everyone okay with that? Okay. So let's turn the page. The Restigouche County Crime Stoppers. So Deputy Mayor Burke's gonna step out. Okay. So there's the form. Okay. Now, so I know back in 2016, the new council tapped Mr. Deputy Mayor Burke to, that was his position he had before, asked him to continue it. He's done it ever since. I don't know how council wishes to approach it, but if you can give me some, or give clerk treasurer some guidance on that. I don't remember, do we send out the applications each year on that?
I think initially there was a request for interest that went out. We had a couple of people that submitted, 2 for sure, if not 3. In the end, Mr. Burke was appointed, and it was appointed at that time, I think, for a year to be reviewed again in another year. So I think he's been appointed a couple of times since then by council. I think it would have been, like, see, August 2021 was the next deadline for it to be appointed. So with the change in council members and Mr. Burke now being on council again, so we didn't go through with August for sure for a reappointment until council got the chance to go through this.
Well, is everyone on council, or is the majority on council satisfied with appointing Deputy Mayor Burke once again, or would people prefer to go out and advertise?
Mr. Burke is doing an amazing job on it, so I have no problem leaving him appointed on it. Like,
Anyone else? Okay, so I guess,
Like Councillor Carmichael had said previously, the only difference as a citizen, he used to get $50 per meeting plus mileage. As a council member, they don't get the remuneration of $50 for any of the meetings they're appointed to, so it would just be the mileage thing. That's
okay, so, right. So it would be, yeah, it would be the mileage, what we would get if we were going to a meeting outside the village. Okay. So, somebody wanna go get Deputy Mayor Burke? We'll fill him in. Oh, yeah, okay. Yeah. Yeah. So the council decided that another appointment, but under the remuneration that council members are given. Deputy Mayor Burke. You are still a rep, but the remuneration would change because you're a council member. It would be mileage. If you were heading to another, representing us at a meeting. So the Chaleur Bay Watershed Group, municipal compensation. So you see the remuneration there, and you see when the position became vacant. This is a little bit of a tough one, I can tell you. There's a lot of responsibility with this one. You can imagine the implications of the watershed, right? So, but there's probably someone out there who would be interested in this. I guess we would advertise, right? That's what we would do next. So is everyone okay with advertising this and seeing if we can get a nibble on a watershed group represent? Okay.
Sorry, can I just?
Yeah,
When we're
go ahead.
advertising, can we make sure that what that group is looking for, that their requirements are being met. So it's not just we're looking for somebody for this group, that the requirements and what their duties are actually included.
Yeah, I made a note on mine to request more information so that we could put that out there for sure.
Okay. So we'll do that. Shalur Green Trails, Councilor Killorn. Has he expressed interest in continuing, or?
Actually, we never ever really got anything going back and forth on this one. It was just at one point they asked for a representative and one was given, but there was never any communication or reports or anything that ever came back to say that, you know, this is something that council's still interested or not. So they really have no records to look it over.
Before we reach out, have Mr. CEO Ferguson perhaps reach out to Mr. Killorn to see if he's interested. Is this something that we still want to, I mean, I'm sure, this must be Samuel Daig's group, right? Is Samuel even associated with this anymore?
Like I said, I don't have any information beyond when they first asked for an appointed member, or, and I can't remember if it was brought in by a council member or if it was sent in. I could follow up for you and find out if there's still an interest before you, the same.
Well, here's what I suggest. Let's perhaps someone get in touch with Samuel. Samuel would be the guy to ask. If there's even a group, and if there is a group, then perhaps you can get in touch with Mr. Killorn and see if he's still interested in being a representative. And if not, then we'll send out, send out a flyer, include it. Maybe we'll have one flyer and we'll wait
That's what I was thinking.
3 or 4 things. Anyone on this side have any thoughts?
Was it a counselor they wanted, or was it just anybody? I'm just wondering that, if we could check that out too.
I can speak to that one.
Yeah.
I was the Beldoon rep on that board. At one time, they decided they were going to have representatives from each municipality serve on the board of directors. Some municipalities appointed somebody, some didn't. Some municipalities that didn't appoint someone, they still had representatives on the committee itself or on the board. So I don't know that it has to be a formal appointment by the Village of Beldoon. I think we could advertise in the newsletter, and they could express interest in the museum itself. I'm not sure how active the board is right now, probably because of COVID. I will say the museum is an incredible facility, and they've done a lot of work. It's in the old courthouse. Beautiful building, and so it would be nice if somebody from Beldoon did sit on the board. Just they need board members, but I don't think it needs to come directly from us. If we advertise the newsletter, that would be sufficient, I think. And then I'm just say as well that they're actually on there twice. The Shalur Area Historical Research Society is the Restigouche Regional Museum.
Okay, so we'll send out a flyer. We'll include that in our flyer. See if we can get a representative for the regional museum. The next one, the Shalur Regional Service Commission. So we have, is the tourism one on here too? Because the tourism they're looking for. Okay. That seems to be one of the important ones for them, but we'll start at the top. So the mayor obviously sits on that committee. The Commission Regional Planning Advisory Committee. So this needs to be, it's a vacant position, and it needs to go out to the general public. So that's one we'll have to put on our flyer.
I believe we had sent that out last year. We may have got maybe one person, maybe 2, but 1 for sure. But there is a certain criteria they're looking for on this as well. So we could reissue again if council feels, but we did at one point put it out there and ask, but we can do it again.
Well, there are some, like in the ports, the same way. They're kind of looking for, they have their set of criteria, and the Service Commission, they know what they're looking for. And the port does too, but it would be nice if we could get these. I know it's important that we start filling some of these service commission positions.
Well, the Regional Planning Advisory Committee, like I said, is that PAC,
Yeah.
you call it, and that's where certain things come to them, like when they talk
Yeah.
about variance and stuff like that, and they
Yeah.
get the, to do
Yeah.
that.
Yeah.
We did have a long-standing member for, my gosh, has it been since the whole time I was here, maybe? In Beldoon, that the person served on the
Yeah.
Beldoon Regional and,
But-
and this one, so.
The planning commission is and this planning sector is an important one because the planning, the Village of Beldoon and the planning commission, the relationship is not fantastic all the time, right? And the person who sits in that position can be a big help in bringing that together, closing that gap and trying to fill the gaps. So that's an important one to try to fill, because when you don't have that on the committee, then the planning commission, has an empty spot that's really tough to fill. So that one's gotta go out. The oversight and support committee, municipal managers meet twice a year. Okay, so that's part of CEO Ferguson's duties? Is that what I'm reading there? Okay, so that's part of the CEO's duties, so that's taken care of. The EMO committee, also part of, right, and I know that CEO Ferguson has been in touch with Scott Poupart a lot. That used to be, what was his name? Ken McGee. And that, now it's Scott Poupart, and I know Scott, and both Scotts know each other quite well, so that one's taken care of. The climate change is another one. The climate change is starting to be a big sector for the Service Commission. It's something that they are gonna be putting a big push on. And so that's an important one to fill. Not sure if compensate, I can find that out, if it's compensated by commission. Jocelyn will know that for sure. No council motion to appoint. So what's that mean, Clerk Treasurer, for me?
The appointment was not officially done, so I'm not sure how the appointment was
Okay.
handled for Mr. O'Rourke, how he got
Okay.
appointed as Beldoon, for Beldoon,
Okay,
but it wasn't done by council
okay.
resolution.
So let's fill that, put that on the paper too. That's one that needs to be filled. And
If I understand, he still sits in that position, but again, I'm not sure.
I don't think I've seen a lot, I don't think if he is, I don't think he's gone there a whole lot, right?
Well, he doesn't live in Beldoon, does he? So he can't really represent Beldoon.
True. Well, I don't want, let's not get in. Hey, but, no, I hear you. So I'll leave that, we'll get that checked out. If that needs to be filled, and I'm 90% sure that should be filled. That should go out for tender, so to speak. The Tourism Committee, another big one. So waiting for a nomination, so we'll put that on the list too. That's gotta be put out there. And if you know some people who would be good sitting on these positions, tell them to get their name in whenever it goes out, right? Okay, Chaleur Area Historical Research Society. That's it. Oh, did I miss something? Oh, okay.
Councillor Robinson had referred, that's the same group.
And then the Nursing Home Board, my brother-in-law used to sit on that board, I believe. Was he on that until he passed away? Okay. So Ms. Talbot's been on there since March, basically, right, when he passed away. So that one would have to go out too then, right?
Well, actually, Mrs. Talbot does sit on there. It was
Okay.
not an appointment that was required by council. If they
Oh,
could
okay,
find someone, they would. There's two different, there's the Housing Nursing Home Board and there's the Housing Nursing Home Foundation. And one looks after the necessities and one looks after the niceties. That's the way I was explained. So I think the board, I can't remember which is which now, but one, like I said, looks after what they're required to have, and the other one is all the special things that maybe is not supplied by the province, and they work on fundraising to get those type of things for the nursing home, so. But I wasn't in, but they did tell me that Patsy Talbot does sit on the board. It didn't require appointment of council, but we do have somebody from Beldoon that sits there.
Okay, so,
Your
and that's
worship?
fine. Yeah.
On that committee, Patsy has obviously sat on the committee and has offered her time and knowing Patsy probably is doing an outstanding job. With that said, maybe the approach should be to ask her if she's interested in the position, and then if not, advertise. If we could.
Everyone okay with that? Okay, then we'll do that. Okay, I guess that wraps that up. All good? Okay, can we get so now it's okay, so we're finished and we'll meet again at 7 o'clock for session 2. Can we get a motion to adjourn? Oh, we're gonna, if you don't wanna take a little break, okay. Does council wanna take a break, you wanna keep going? Okay, then we're gonna keep going into the second session, which is dealing with the 2022 budget preparation. There we go. Okay, and turn it over to Councillor Carmichael.
Well, we're gonna start what page are you on, Brenda? The operation one? So there was quite a bit that we went over it quite quickly on last week when we worked on it, so we can start.
It's probably just as well if you start from the beginning again and the gaps
Yeah,
that weren't
we'll
filled
start at the
in,
beginning again,
and then
yes.
council could talk about those.
Okay,
Okay.
yeah, so, you got, okay.
So on the non-tax revenues, we have quite a few of those areas that were filled in. I did send council like a 4-year comparison report by email this week. And I think I include on the agenda as well, to kind of help them to see what it was like prior to COVID year and things like that for some of these revenues. So if there was anything that's stuck out at you in terms of anything that we think we should change on here right there now, we could do that. But like I said, the only thing we're really missing on this one right there now would be the planning RSC, some of their figures, which should be coming in shortly. So other than that, if we looked at the non-tax revenues as is, a lot of it's being carried over from the previous years, with the exception of we increased the campground revenues because we did have a better year this year. We increased the arena revenues again because we had a better year so far this year. The rental space, because we got extra rental space in some other facilities. So some of the reality of what our current status is showing us in revenue. So if there's not too much left to do on that, we can just move on.
Brenda, I noticed when I was looking at the 4-year report that there's some things that we had gone over budget in the past.
In terms of revenue,
Yes.
yeah, that can happen. Like I said, it can happen that will occur on some of those items. But again, it's just sometimes sometimes it's a grant that we didn't think we were going to get that was applied through the year and we got it. So without having that information at hand, it's hard to budget for it unless we know we're definitely going to be applying for certain grants and things. But without the approvals, it would be hard to put figures in there on revenue side. Okay, so if we move to the general government services. Oops. Okay, so whereas the things with the mayor's salary, councilor's salary, there's no proposed change for that bylaw, so those figures should stay pretty much within that category. We shouldn't see much of a change there in terms of salaries. Everything should go. We still left in there the amounts that may include, like for instance, if we did get back to normal and are able to travel and council go out of town, the per diem amount that's in their budget is like $300 per day. So those things is still calculated in there as if they could possibly happen. unless council feels something else about that, then we could just leave that like that, because that's an unknown that we just,
Under the development seminars.
no, it would be under councilors other and mayor's other, or would be included in the per diem. Oh, it's the mayor's salary and per diem, and the councilor's salary and per diem.
Yeah, I don't have any problem with those numbers.
Okay,
I'm looking at the development seminar. You know, the figure's at $15,000. Is that 2021?
that was the figure at the last meeting that I was told to increase it by that amount for the purpose of council. We might be taking more trainings on various, whether it's in-house trainings or whether it's trainings that's offered at other levels.
But we'd never go through $15,000. Is it not so that in 2021, that'd be 2020, that we had a counselor attend the FMC in, I don't know where it was, but in Ottawa? So, yeah, I can see where we're going to have that kind of expenditure. You're going to need to cover it because that will be airfares, hotels, meals, so on and so on. But, you know, looking at just seminar, development of seminars, 15,000 sounds like a lot of money to me.
Okay, yeah, I probably agree with that, but let's, just for the sake of, let's just do some hands. Who wants it to remain at 15? Who would prefer that we drop it down to, let's say, I don't know, what, 7.5, 8?
Well, I mean, at 10,000, I think we've got
Okay,
lots.
let's do a 15,000 versus 10,000.
Well, wouldn't the clerk treasurer have a better idea as to what was spent with previous years of training for council to know if we're in the
Yeah,
right ballpark?
sure. What do you have an opinion, Clerk Treasurer?
Well, if you look at your comparisons report, we spent over 10 in 2018. We spent nearly 10 in 2019. 2020, we actually didn't go anywhere, so that they didn't really do a big expenditure there. We had a big amount in there, but it wasn't expended. I think there was plans to hire some sources to come in. That was going to be quite expensive, but that didn't transpire. And then in this year, we've spent 12,000, but again, you had your orientations because of an election year, and you've had the provincial one wasn't expensive, but you had a facilitator come in and go through one with you. We had her legal come in and go in, so it was higher this year for those two reasons. Council didn't attend any conferences or workshops, so.
I just believe that our numbers need to be much more realistic. That doesn't mean that if this budget went to, for example, to 12,000, that's an issue. But at the end of the day, you know, we have, for example, $4.6 or $4.8 million to fill in these boxes. So if we start stretching some of the numbers that are iffy, at the end of the day, we're taking money away from projects that we would have money to do things with. So I'm just recommending that the number, and not only this number, but there will be other numbers, be much more realistic to the budget that we will need to respect as a council, and that we will ask any other committee doing things for the village, that they will respect their budget. You know, I can assure you that in 2022, we're going to have some issues as far as our taxation is concerned. So we need to start looking at it realistically. $5,000 may not sound like a whole lot in the big picture, but if we do that 20 times, we're talking $100,000. And when you've got 300 or 400 lines that we're going to fill in, it wouldn't be hard to have 20 items $5,000 higher than what they should be. So I just believe that numbers should be much more realistic, so that at the end, we have a realistic budget and we will respect the budgets we have.
Okay, so let's not, we need to move on to other things too. So let's just have a show of hands on this. 15,000 that stays, or let's do 15 or 10. Who's for 15?
Say,
Yeah.
because one year it was $12,000 and that was 2020, you said, right? So I mean, the possibility of it getting back to that next year is probably,
2020 was COVID year.
but we spent 12,000.
This year.
Oh, sorry.
Okay, the majority wish it to remain at 15. So 15 it is, let's move on.
Okay, so again, I believe council will probably leave the whole employee personnel thing until another night and figure out how, we're gonna go about that. So first night we'll pass over that, if that's okay with council? I'm sorry about that. Personnel, you have to leave, till another night and determine how you're gonna do that. The admin other is, basically, for some administrative expense in terms of mileage and stuff for admin to use, when they, do business for the village. The new facility, I did look at that, and we currently are, I said, we don't see, we're at, we're currently at about 106,000, but again, when our heating and stuff, that's going to take effect for the next 3 months. So the 150 may not be far off from what the actual cost of operating the building is overall. Okay? Solicitor, we use our legal services, and if the intent is to continue to use those services when we need to have some clarification or to assist us with legal matters. If the 20,000 has been a number that's been used for several years now, and it seems to it seems to come out that that's pretty much, sometimes it's right on, other times it's not. It depends. Like I said, if we do have a legal action that we have to deal with as a municipality, that number can go up, especially if it's a court affair. But the 20,000 has been something. We've seen, like, one year we're at 13, another one we're at 24, another one at 23. Currently we're at 18, and we still have some services that he's providing us. So it could go over budget this year as well, but if you want to leave to 20, that'd be fine to work with. Other admin services, we went through that. It's pretty well, that's pretty stationary as to what that all comes in as well, around 50. The audit's the same. That's very close to what our audits and financial comes in. The one we're in civic relations, we talked about that. The training and development for staff, cost of assessment is a number that I'll get when I get the tax base. They'll tell me, so it'll be probably a little bit less than that 66,000 because our assessment's probably going to go down a bit. The RSC services, again, I'm waiting for their number. The municipal, that's employment. Municipal supervisor other is expenses related to that employment position and some of the other employees. Conventions and delegations. Public liability insurance, when I did look at it this year, I had it at 50, but it actually came in closer to 55 this year. It's 54 something, so I changed that number. The grants, I think council had a pretty good discussion on the grants and felt that the 50 was what you were willing to live with the figures that were in there for the commitments that you make to the Snowmobile Club as well as to the school. Protective services, we still don't have our numbers from the policing. We will not have anything under the, to my knowledge, under the policing services from CRSC it was there 1 year because they did a study. So that'll be taken out. That's not existent last year nor this year. The fire department, we went through that pretty much. I'm just waiting for the figure again from the 911 dispatch in Bathurst. It's probably going to be a bit above the 12, like everything else. It increases a bit every year. And again, they haven't provided me that number, but it'll be probably a tad bit over that, I would say. But I think the direction from council from the last meeting was to leave the fire department budget with all the figures in, but ask that the fire chief submit some sort of a plan as to what he would need and as well to communicate to him that he should buy his stuff when he needs it, and not really wait till the end of the year to expend the money. If they need it, buy it, and if something comes up, council would help them deal with that at that time if they didn't have monies left in their budget. So if I was correct in that conversation. So all of the fire department budget, everything is in there that was in before. Disaster control, we did talk about the emergencies. That was brought up last year because we didn't know what kind of supplies or anything we would have to buy with COVID. So with that said, we kind of moved that down to be more in line with what we usually had it at before, because we didn't see a lot of expenditures this year that we had to incur for COVID reasons, so we were good there. RSC, again, EMO regional, I have to wait for their budget, and the animal control is basically runs the contract that we have with the SPCA. It's $600 and some odd a month for the regular just service, and then we get billed on top of that for say if they have dogs or cats and that people drop or they have to come and get. They have rules that they have to abide by for boarding them for so many days while they're trying to get them places, and unfortunately if they don't get a place they have to euthanize them, and so we get extra billing for those services, and it's in the contract that we have with them, that extra billing. So it takes about that much a year for them to provide us that service. Transportation, the building, again, the others we'll pass by unless council has some plans on additional employment above and beyond the current employees, but again, that would probably be a personnel one that you'd want to talk about at that time if you wanted to add something to that department in terms of employment. So we get down to the roads and transportation. If council want to, again, get in discussions on those items, the engineering outsourcing is where we have small jobs that we ask the engineers that we need their expertise on drawing up the specs for sometimes. And if council feels that's a service that they still need to outsource to an engineering firm sometimes to do that, then we'd have to probably put a figure in there for sure. I'll get you some numbers here to comparison. Okay, so 2018 was a big year. There was some major projects I think that went on in that year. 2019 we were around 24,000. 2020 we were around 31,000, and currently this year we're at about almost 9, and we still. This doesn't take into account like the big job like the Westiger Street extension. That'll fall under capital projects. So this is for smaller type things that come up that they require them to do. So if council feel they still need a number in there, they could let me know what they feel that is.
You said we spent 9,000 already?
Yes.
So I think it'd be safe to put back the 15 in there for next year, if everybody else is in agreement, because you don't know what could come up.
I'm sorry I didn't have the mic on. As I noted, like the their roads and streets had 25,000 allocated to provide gravel and grading on some of the gravel roads last year, and they're still not all completed, still need some more work there. The other part was the street crack filling. That was where we got the big job done, but I believe CAO Ferguson had brought in a document last time, and he's going to carry it over to committee. If council want to purchase a machine that the Public Works can use here internally, it would definitely reduce that one down by quite a bit. We didn't do the big jobs like that this year at all. There's money that can be, you know, allocated if council have other projects in mind that falls under the roads and streets and repairs. In the brush cutting one, the 8,000, well, that's kind of with our own tractor and the equipment they need and the fuel and stuff to do the job they do. But there was $15,000 put in there last year was in regards to maybe hiring a contractor to do some of the larger, I guess, so that wasn't done this year. So whether council feels that's necessary or whether they feel our tractor can handle the jobs that it's doing to get down in the ditch. Like before it could only do the shoulder, now it can go down the ditch a bit more because it's got a bigger arm and a boom or whatever they use to cut. So if council feel that they don't see the necessity of contracting out for somebody to do a more extensive job, that's something they can leave out of the budget or add in.
Brenda, if we removed it this year, we could, and see if we needed it, we could look at it the following year. You could
Yes.
put a note. What does the other councilors think about that, to remove it? And then maybe if we see that we need it done, we'll do it the following year. And we do have the tractor now that does a lot of the brush cutting too, which is great.
Culverts and drainage, again,
Just-
that,
oh.
sorry.
Just on the brush cutting, you know, as I had mentioned in one of the committee of the whole meetings prior to, you know, we don't cut our shoulder, we do not cut the grass on the shoulder of the road often enough. Twice a year is not adequate. 3 times a year I could live with, but we need to start in June, not the end of July. You know, so with that said, do we need more money there to justify that expenditure? Or is that underemployment, or where do we need to put the money?
No, I believe, like, if you're talking about our own equipment, I believe probably that $8,000 could probably handle.
Would do it? Okay.
I think you would be fine.
That's fine.
So in terms of the other, if council has no particular projects in mind when it comes to road work and streets and culverts and drainage, I'll speak to the Public Works Manager to see if there's any items that he knows that's on the list that has to be addressed next year. And he could come in with some figures of the things he knows, but I'm not sure about council.
Also, the DTI summer maintenance, we were going to contact them to see if that could be removed. That was discussed at the last budget meeting, that's $68,000.
CAO Ferguson was
Yeah.
gonna have that discussion with them, and I have mentioned her, I'll remind him, I know he's been talking to them, but I don't know that particular.
Even if we could bring it down some, if we're not using that money.
Well, they won't bring it down because their rates are based on per kilometer.
Kilometers per
Per
road.
lane kilometer. And the summer maintenance is 6 months out of the year, and winter maintenance is 6 months out of the year, but it's all based on per kilometer. So not on the actual jobs they do.
Just to add to that, if I may. If we're gonna spend $52,000 on a crack filling machine, which I have no objection to because I believe that we could probably do a better job than they do. But once again, it was probably late August when DTI came in and filled in some of these holes. We all know that if the village was doing its own work, those holes would have been done a lot sooner than that. So, I mean, I don't know if our choices are, you know, DTI summer maintenance or nothing. At the end of the day, personally, I'd prefer to see nothing. You know, it comes down to that In my experience in dealing with this, I have never felt that we got $68,000 worth of work out of DTI. In my opinion, they may bill us $68,000, but we never get the quality of work we should. I do believe we would get the quality of work that the public expects if we were doing it in-house. So personally, I'd say, let's buy the machine and do away with the $68,000.
Yeah, and I think CAO Ferguson will bring it in for
Bring
committee
that up,
whole on the
bring that.
machine to talk about it. The other thing, I'll ask him to talk to our public works manager again to see if it's going to require them to have additional personnel, because that's a possibility, because when you're doing work right on the road, the signage and flag people and all that there, I mean, you have to follow those rules. So we'll have to check to see with him in terms of if he's going to need those type of people to help on a seasonal basis. The other item is why with DTI, we said we want to make sure that if we remove the summer, we can still have the winter maintenance contract with them, because we don't want to get rid of one at the expense of the other, that's for sure. So he's going to check all those details, Mr. Ferguson, with them to find out for sure if we can remove this summer and still keep the winter. Keep in mind, Route 134 still belongs to DTI, and DTI will still be responsible to fill the cracks and the potholes on Route 134. We'd be responsible for all the other streets that we own as a municipality.
But the other side of the coin to all that is that I've yet to see DTI with flag people from Beldoon. It's not a bad thing if we had to hire our own flag people. It would probably be a good thing. But with that said, I know in my experience, I passed through those roadblocks, if you want to call them that. All it is a bunch of tar that goes up underneath your car. And, there's no flag bearers from Beldoon working for them, so I don't believe it'd be that bad a problem for us to be hiring our own to do the work and have it done properly.
And the crack filler, for instance, is for that rubberized crack, so it's more like the cracks, but if you actually get a pothole, that's something else that would have to be handled in a different way, but again, they seem to just shovel asphalt in there and hit it with a shovel. Basically, I don't see, I very often do I see a roller packing it or anything, right?
We pack it with
So,
our cars.
so if you get on them right away, you wouldn't probably have as many if you keep up on them. So again, I'll get Mr. Ferguson to meet with our public works manager and talk about those things in terms of how many, we need extra people and what they would need, if it's some flagging, because you have to have courses and stuff. And I know we have some in the community that's got it, so just working out what he thinks that would be a budget figure for.
And I'm just wondering too, like, if we wanted to, say, fix up our sidewalks from that stretch of road, like coming down, well, basically from the Superette to just up here, is that something that would have to be done, like, because we're not responsible for that road? What would the process be to do that?
In terms of the road on Road 134, DTI is responsible for the white line to the white line.
Okay.
And anything beyond the white line, which is the shoulder, sidewalks, ditch, falls on the municipality.
Okay, so first of all, I don't even think there is a white line on a good section of that road, so they're reneging on part of their deal. There needs to be a white line on that.
Well, not, they usually say white line to white line, but it means right where the pave ends,
Yeah.
kind of, where the pave ends before the shoulder, paved shoulder, is what they take responsibility for.
Okay, so how would we go about, or how would we put it in the budget to be able to fix that stretch of road with the sidewalk, as well as that stretch from Flanagan's Turn down to about Giggs Newell's, where that deep ditch and the road is sloped and there's like a drop off? Like, how would we go about fixing
Are
that?
you referring to the road itself you're referring to?
Well, that, and like, just even if I don't know if it would be a guardrail or if we'd have to like widen the side of the road so that there is room for a white line.
Yeah, well, the province has a program and they call it, it's a 5-year plan for designated highways within your municipality. So each year you submit a 5-year plan with sections over 5 years for that Route 134 that you would like to have the province approve. Up until a few years ago, if they approved it, they paid 100% for the work, and they went out and tendered and did it. They changed that program a few years back, that each municipality would have to pay a share of that. Currently, I believe Baldoon's percentage is 15%. Now, if you're in a city, it's more, if you're in a town, it's more, but for the villages, I think it was at 15%. And it came that we had to do the specs, we had to do the tendering, we had to award the tender, and then they would reimburse us the money that they approved. Now, if it went over budget, they were still going to only give you, they were still only going to give you the money that they agreed to give you. So if the tender comes in higher than what is the estimate, that section you're referring to, I spoke with our engineers this week to see if our 5-year plan was submitted. It was. And I did this by email. DTI the same. I asked them on the sections, well, our plan didn't go in, so they decided they just took the previous year. It was the same plan because we didn't get approved of anything, so they just took the same plan. The number one project in that plan is from the Jacket River Church, I believe, down to the bridge in Jacket River. That was the first priority that was on that list to do. It's been spec'd to a certain amount by the engineers so they could get the cost estimate and stuff like that for that. So that was and then the second part of that one was the section you're talking about, which goes like from the Quinn Road down to about the turn down by, you said, by Gabriel Knowles, around that area. And it had it in as a storm sewer system. So it looks like the concept was to pipe that deep ditch with a storm sewer system. I don't know if it included actual work to the road. So the engineers didn't do a full engineering onto it because it would only been the next phase and it cost money for the village to have that done. So that was where the standard is. That's the request that's currently in at the provincial level. Whether we get approval for a section next year, and if we do, it'll be the Jacket River Church to the Jacket River Bridge section.
I think we need to move on, though.
Okay?
Yeah.
So,
Can I just, I would like to see the Mitchell-Lawler Road intersection remain on this budget and have that dealt with in the coming year, if it's not dealt with this year.
nope, you just have to give me a figure if you want to put in.
Well, the figure previously was 125. Couldn't go much lower than 100 since, yeah, I would say anywhere between 100 and 125, if you're gonna put it in there.
Would you like me to put the 125, and as the budget progresses and we see where we are at the end of it, then that's, okay? Okay, so, again, these figures, unless there's some huge culverts and drainage jobs that are going to hit council table, normally we've had 35 in there for the last 2018, 2019, 2020. There was 35 last year. We dropped it down to 20,000. Currently, at this year, we're still going to be good at the 20 unless there's some big projects that come up between now and the end of the year. That the 20,000 would be sufficient compared to the 35 that was for the previous 3 years. So everything is, these others are street cleaning and flushing, street sweeping, storm sewer flushing, winter maintenance private contract. That is for, again, that small portion of Ocean Avenue. It was a 3-year tender, and I believe this would be the last year for it. DTI and street lighting, street signs, traffic lane marking. I noticed it's a little bit increased this year. The traffic signals and railway crossings. Now, that's with the exception of employment and the road work that if our public works identifies what he's grading, some figures to put in there. If he needs something on the street crack filling in terms of not the equipment, but the supplies, that would be related to that. So we can fill those numbers in once we have discussions with the public works manager. Environmental, again, the solid waste collection, we're still just on the employment side of it. Now we get to I did get the number from Regional Planning Services of $108,362 for our planning compared to $128 and $95 in 2021. Research and planning, I don't think I need that. I don't know why it's 2, it should only be 1. 1 should be sufficient. Industrial park, that's to pay for property taxes, there's any hydrant work, things like that. So this was a study that was in there before, but we're not doing that, so I'll just take that out. A rail spur line, we have a contract of, that's the inspections, and I'm trying to figure out why I would have put 4 there instead of, there's a bit of work I know required there. There was something sent in previous, that there's a bit of, where is it? Where's his? Yeah, there was a bit of some bolts, track bolts that need to be replaced, and some washers and stuff like that for joints. It's about $1,400. That was an estimate that came in June. I don't believe the work has not been awarded or done. So once in a while, we're going to end up on those in a track inspection. Sometimes it can be a huge job. And again, I would have to check with the inspector company that does it to see if they anticipate any big repairs for the next year. And that's the one that's the spur line that's in the industrial park. The Samberry project, again, most of that's related to employment. RSC, I'm still waiting for the breakdown on the economic development. Now, this is the area where council may want to have more discussion on economic development and how much money they wish to put in there.
Do we need all that money in there, 1950? I think we could go with the 50. That's
In terms of
104.
the grants,
The grant is what, that's the housing one?
no, the housing one was 25, but it exceeded that this year. Let me see, I'll get your. The housing, when this print was on the 24th, 25,745, and I believe I paid out 2 more after that, so we're definitely around probably closer to the 30,000 we spent, and there's a possibility of some more applications coming in, because I know there's a few more homes that sold in the area, so we're probably going to see a few more applications. So far this year, we're at 30,000 there for the housing incentive program.
So of the 90,000 that was budgeted for last year, was any of that spent?
So for this year's budget,
Yeah.
I don't believe there's any, wait there, I'm gonna get you. No, I believe there was a bit out of the 50. And it was based on again, the 10% part of a construction job, and I believe it was around $3,000 if I'm not. Yeah, around $3,000 was spent out of the 50 in relation to a renovation on a business. Nothing out of the 90. The student subsidy program, we're just around, this year around 17 to that, but that was for 4 employees.
Back to the economic development growth. We could put that down to 70,000 because the grant is 35,000, and I don't think we get more than 2 a year, and then remove one of them. That would be money that we could save, that we could put somewhere else. And as for the housing incentive program, it's a good program, but a lot of people doesn't even know it's there until they're here, and then people tell them it's there, and then they come in and get it. So I'm just wondering if that is actually working for us.
I don't think it's something that we need at this point. I think that money could be put elsewhere.
I'm thinking the same thing. I think we've exhausted that program. And the development growth compared to the development grants. So the growth is to,
The growth wasn't really clearly defined when we did budget as to what that would be specifically used for.
right,
The other economic development grant, one of the 50,000 was more, seemed to be more according to the bylaw, right? And the criteria that was just passed in this last spring. But it was never really, the growth part was never really defined to, so that.
so no money has come out of that 90?
90, there's nothing come out of that.
Really?
No.
So maybe we should kind of just do something with that, bring it down.
Like I said, bring the other one to 70, remove the 90, and the 25 is exhausted itself.
So if we change this one to this would be 0, is
Can
what
I
you're
just-
saying?
Yeah, and the
Can
other one,
can I say something about this? As far as economic development growth, if it hasn't been tapped into, I don't see the point in keeping the 90 there. The 50,000, because there's a bylaw in place, that's what people are applying for economic development grants for
Exactly.
local businesses. That one should be capped. And a housing incentive program, if that's if you're helping people who have moved to the village from outside, of course they're not gonna know about it until they move here and somebody tells them about it. But maybe that program can be better advertised within the village so that people moving here do know about it, but they seem to be tapping into it, so that seems to be working. The 90,000 doesn't seem to be working at all if it's never been tapped into. So I would say get rid of the 90,000 economic development growth grant or whatever growth budget line and save that for something that would work. Keep your 50,000 because that does work. It's been applied to 3 times. And the housing incentive program is the only one there that is actually working to benefit people in the community.
And I believe that's what Councillor Carmichael was saying, to make the 90 0 and make the bylaw one for the grants bring it up to 70. No, she was saying remove the 90. No, increase,
No.
take a 0 at the 90, increase the 50 to 70, and then the one on the housing again is, I guess, still at the debate level. Just to let council know, if they did remove that to 0 for next year, you're definitely going to have to rescind that policy and take it off the books because it would no longer apply. If you just want to increase it and find more advertising, I believe there's a few realtors that's been, they know about it. So, yeah, I believe it was, from what I understand from before, that this information was given to some of the realtors, and they're aware of it. I don't have any documentation on that, but that was kind of the information I was given at one point.
I know I was asked by some people about it, that after the people moved in, about the grant, they weren't told by moving here. They moved here because they chose it. They loved our village, we'll say.
Yeah, I don't think it's doing what it was intended to do. I think it was originally intended to lure people here, like as an incentive to get them here, but I don't think that's what it's doing. I think people are coming here because everything is selling. It's not only here, it's all over. And so I think the money could be better invested someplace else.
So I'm looking for or is it up for more discussion at another budget meeting as you think about it a little bit more, or maybe?
Maybe that's a good idea.
Okay.
Let's keep it there, but come back to it.
Okay. It's future discussion.
Question
Yeah.
mark.
Okay, I'll just leave it blank, and the discussion, I can note on my notes. Now, the student subsidy grant, as I noted, it hasn't been utilized as much this year. At one point, this started out at quite a high budget and a quite high usage. Over the years, it's been going down and down in terms of usage, and of course, we applied the budget accordingly. So if council wished to try to maybe see some things that they could do to reinforce that for next year, they either keep the budget the same, increase it, reduce it, but you have the option of maybe looking at why it's not being as utilized as it was.
And can you just let me know what we used this year?
A little over 17. We had 4 students under the program with 4 different businesses.
So 30,000, we would be safe with it for now, and then if we decide to increase it in the future, we can increase it, because this is not the final copy anyway.
Yeah, because the extra, you might, like, if you had 4, you could end up with maybe 3 more under there. 7, it might handle 7, depending on the time frame we award it for. So for 30 for now and just, okay. Again, tourism, I'm waiting for campground, is employment, the Welcome Center, the promotion of tourism, interpretation center. This amount last year, there was a discussion on hiring on a seasonal basis, a tourism human resource person. It didn't happen. And so that's why the 30,000, nothing's been used of that either. Getting dry here. So that's a discussion if council feel is warranted or not warranted to pursue that type of person again.
I didn't see a great need for it at the time, so I don't know, to hire another one for tourism we have. I know that at the campground and the other place, people go there and they ask their questions, and the seasonal workers are doing a good job at that. So to add another position at that, I'm not sure if it's something I agree on. I don't know what the rest of the council think on that.
I think we'd know more about that once we come up with our plan of action.
So for now, nothing in it for next year, looking at subsequent year maybe. Another type, okay, so that takes care of our environmental so far. Okay, personnel now, if we look at the current recreation and cultural services, with the exception of the HR personnel, the other, when I looked at it, these figures that was in there last year would still work this year. I did have some report from our Rec and Wellness. These are the items that he put in, that he was thinking about working on. Some was under long-term wants and some was under short-term needs. So I'll go with the short-term needs. I think he meant to say a splash pad, but he's got a slash pad, but I think it's a splash pad he was looking for. And it said it would be, I think he must have got an estimate of 42,300, and you're saying something like a 20% of cost, 20% cost. Oh, no, our 20% would be 42,300. On that one, he's got the yoga classes and the seniors fitness classes and the Zumba, which are all run about $4,200 a year each. So that's 12,000, 13,000 there. He's got about 2,500 in for gymnasium equipment. Well, the travel and expense that's under, he's the operating cost for the person. Liquor license and entertainment license, that's in relation to the recreation center, so that's something we do. You talked about promotional.
If I may?
Oh, sorry.
Just a question. I know, there's been some talk with the beachfront at the campground, being able to get down there. We've talked about it. Where would the funding go for that? If we were to say.
That would be under capital projects, because it
Under
would be
capital
a
project?
major piece of infrastructure to do that road, so you would
Okay.
have to address it under capital. Either capital out of operating, capital out of our reserve, or board money, depending, or a combination of all three if you want to use some from each, so. We had, the other thing was the promotional items, he had put in $1,000 on, to request on that. There's a membership there for Recreation New Brunswick, which again would just be part of the office. There's a membership also for a Greenway Trails partner, which would pair, just, these things are just office stuff, so it's not really.
One other question concerning,
Yep,
the park that's on the corner of Main and Jacket River Drive,
the memorial,
the Memorial Park,
yeah,
the lighting has never been finished in that.
no.
Where would that fit in the budget?
I think that would fall on your parks and playgrounds type of, we have a
Okay.
budget there for that type of stuff. If it wasn't a huge expenditure, it would be, but I don't think it would fall under capital there now, it would just fall under like.
Well, I believe there's 4 streetlights or 4.
I think there's a place there for 4 lamp posts, and there was talks about benches there, a couple of benches
Yeah.
there at one time as well, and it never did get completed.
Yeah, so well, let me rephrase that. I will fight with this group to have it done this year.
To have it completed this fall, you mean? Oh, you mean in this?
No, I'd rather see it in the budget, that way it's planned
Okay,
and done.
yep, okay. I think it was probably listed on the old budget a couple of times saying that it wasn't done, like, and that it needed to be done. There's probably a little also where the entrance goes in, there's kind of a lip, and I think there was something that had to be done there for wheelchair access to make that accessible, if I recall at that time too, that it had to be a kind of a encroachment of some kind to get it up there. He's got accommodations at a conference, about $1,700 there. Advertising, seniors paint class, $3,000. Summer activity program camps, $2,000. And music in the park, I believe music in the park was under the budget of the festivals and committees type of things, so that would be. So he has a fair list there that definitely wouldn't fit within that budget. The splash pad for sure would be a capital expenditure. If the 20% is 42, well, we're talking, over 200,000, almost 250 or something like that for that. But the yoga classes, the seniors, the Zumba, the gymnasium equipment, the promotional items, the seniors painting classes, the summer activities, student camp, those type of things would fall under that budget, and we have 20 for 13, 14, 15, 16. I'm just looking here, 16. It would be over 20. That
would a
budget would have to be increased to accommodate all those
Would the
items.
splash pad fall under our gas tax? Is that a viable project?
I don't think it would fall under that. Because that's more for green type of, what they call green type of projects, or, but even with the other ones without that in there would fall over to $20,000. Here he talked about the splash pad, it's between 160, well, the original cost was around 236,000. That he must have got a cost on that, so that's why he's saying 20% of that. It's a 12 by 12, and plus it would need electrical hookups. The pool chair, is the beach, which he's already got some money from RDC. He's ordered it today, and compared to the $7,700 and some dollars it said it was going to cost, I gave him the name of the company of the one in Bathurst, and it's coming in at a little over $3,000 for the chair. And they're really happy with theirs in Bathurst because our insurance brokers was part of that, and they really said it's working well. And the chair, so just a little over 3. So we'll only see 50% from RDC, like it'll only be maybe $1,600 or $1,700. It won't be $5,000 because they pay up to 50%, up to $5,000. So
What
But again, it's much
what
cheaper.
exactly is that chair? Is it to go on the beach or is it
Yep.
to go in the water?
it can go in the water too, because I think the wheels are made that it can go in the water as well.
So will it be advertised for people to know where to get it?
Well, that was something I asked the Rec and Wellness coordinator to send me the stuff that we needed in terms of liability forms and how it was going to operate and how it was going to be stored and how it was going to be rented. I will send that all to you. Okay, so that's one item, like I said, the chair. There's talks here about an Olympic propane edger for the arena. That's around $6,000. But he didn't put it in his wants and needs, he just put it on a written. He got the winter programs for the yoga, seniors painting, summer activity program. I think it was based on what we had provided this year. The running, he does have in there a running and walking track for long-term ones, which he discusses at a $35,000, but then again, these are things you can talk about when you're doing your long-term strategic planning, some of these major projects, if it fits in with your plans. Conversion of the tennis court to the pickleball court in Jacket River, but there's no cost to that. And then he talked about the Bellevue with the swings, and I guess there would be one that would have to be purchased for the Jacket River seniors next year. So and all the things that being asked, the 20,000 probably wouldn't cover if they're all approved, and I'm not talking about the big capital ones, I'm just talking about the certain programs.
Has he said where he wanted to do the walking trail and, I'm just asking, and the splash pad? Was there any like, that's something we'd want
Says
to
the
know before?
location would need to be decided by council, and the suggestions are behind the Jack River Fire Station, but I think your engineering, what you would need for engineering on that would tell you where you would have to locate it. The water source, you have to be about that as well. Where's our water supply? We don't have a central system, so you need a water supply that can handle that. I know it's supposed to be one that reclaims itself, like it just goes through a tank and it keeps getting put through. You don't have to, it's not going out to a storm sewer or anything. It's got a circulation system, so it works with a circulation system and it keeps recirculating the water. So again, council would have to decide where the best spots for those things were. The walking trail, I don't believe he had it in here where the proposed, where that proposed walking track would go. But again, these are discussions if council want to have when they're doing their strategic planning for those bigger items, then that's things that they'd have to consider. So again, the health and wellness program, if all on his list is besides the big ones, it would take more money than the $20,000 to fulfill those. The health and wellness program.
Yeah, no, where are we at right now?
Oh, the amounts?
Yeah, offhand.
I'll do a quick calculation for him.
I can tell you that I've been getting a lot of good feedback about the seniors programs that come out of the health and wellness. So I think, I'm not sure, in 2016 or 17 when that first came about, I think there was some question about, you know, if it would work, but to me, it seems like it's getting some good feedback from the seniors anyway.
So it's about, right now what I got is around 22,000 just for what he's got calculated on his spreadsheet. And I know council had spoke about trying to redo the summer camp different than what it was. So if that was to go different than what it was, that would cost more than what we've seen this year in terms of the expenditures for that, so.
Well, I mean, you saved a lot on the economic growth side. So pumping maybe 10,000 or 5,000 more on that side's not gonna hurt.
25? Yeah. Okay. And I think your resource center would stay the same. The community recreation center, like again, we had in there last year about doing a dishwasher stove and all that. It didn't happen. But I'm going to.
Could you make a note and ask Daryl to look into the funding that there is? Because there is funding available. If that kitchen down there at that rec center is used for things like senior suppers and those types of things, then we would then be eligible for funding to put that dishwasher in and upgrade that kitchen.
Yes, it certainly does need a facelift. It's, when you're working in it, it's tight, it's kind of not the biggest
Okay.
space, but a dishwasher would be great.
Okay, so I'll get him to check out that. I'm looking for where we are with the rec and well this year. So currently, if we look, I mean, there's a portion of that budget goes out for the caretaker, about 24,000 off of that, so we're talking about like around 61.5 for other sources. We are going to be going out to tender for janitor caretaker services in the near future, according to CAO Ferguson. So of a 61,500 budget at the rec center, we currently spent around 37. But again, they had included extra in there for the purpose of, and I think 2 years in a row they included that the washer, dishwasher, and stove thing was to be looked into. So, like I said, we're about 27,000 we still have in that budget for this year. So if council feel they want to leave that to look at that for next year, and if funding does come in, it'll just offset the cost of that, and it'll be extra revenue, or will be an extra monies that you could have to expend on other things if you want it. But you're probably going to have to pay a share of that cost anyhow, in terms of the renovation or upgrades, right? So if you feel you want to leave that there for now, and then as we move, like I said, ahead, if we have to be some deductions, well, then you can look at those places. The marinas, the Culligan and Durham, we do have some costs there associated, especially on the Culligan, because we installed the slip and removed the slip. And then we have portable washrooms there in the summer. And up at the Durham one, which is, we have a hydro that's connected there that we pay that bill every month. So 5,000 is sufficient. It seems to cover everything there that we need to for those both operations right there now.
I just want to ask what councils, we all know that there's been some requests to upgrade both. And we don't quite know what that entails. It's kind of complicated. I think Culligan is less complicated than Durham, but they're both sort of complicated. What's the council's appetite for doing something in both? I mean, I don't mean like having outside groups, because I think there's some outside groups that are sort of advocating for that. But I mean, just council, just what are we staying at 5, or are we putting some money in there, more money for investment in case, or just trying to get an idea for council what their opinion is in terms of our investment in both of those.
I was told by a previous council member, like not, I don't think it was not previous, but previous to that council, that there had been at one point a study done by somebody who came up to find like where would the best place in Baldoon be to put a wharf, that it would require the least amount of maintenance and the least destruction from waves and whatnot. And I'm just wondering, Brenda, if you know anything about that report, if that's something we could look into?
Right off the top of my head, I remember there being some discussion, and a consultant was brought in to talk about building a marina down by Rorty. There was some very preliminary cost estimates put in on that at that time. As far as studies on the others, I don't recall anything during my time, although I had heard when I came in that they looked at the Culligan one many times to see what could be done there, and it has something to do with the tides there, that like a floating dock, or it just won't work there for those reasons. And like I said, apparently that was all looked at prior to me ever coming to work in Baldoon. So that's the only ones that I have any recollection of on that.
Do you recall if the report was saying that the Rorty's Point was the best place to put it, or it was just somebody had an idea?
I don't think the consultant was to say that it was best place, because I don't think there was any kind of work done to determine where was the best place to put it. I think they were asked to look at if they did put one there, what could possibly be the cost of it. But I don't think they given any study to determine, like I said, what the water would do there and how it would work there. That part I don't recall. They got that detailed.
Well, my personal opinion is that it seems that the majority of the community wants a wharf or a marina of some sort, some place to put a boat. And my own personal opinion is that I think it's embarrassing that we have all of this coastline and no place to launch a boat. I think that it's something we definitely should be looking into, and I think it's something that we need.
I agree. I think we need to sit down with a plan. It may not be on this year, but to see where we can go and what to look at. I heard that the Durham has some kind of structure down there for that. It was started for a Durham wharf, a floating wharf, so down in Durham. So I'm just wondering, but then I heard a lot of stuff about dredging and the Salmon River and so on. So I think it's something we need to sit down and discuss and see where and what we can do.
Right now, there is a budget for $5,000 for that? For those, for the
For
Culligan
those
and
two, just for operational.
Right.
And the
So
status quo.
if we wanted to look into finding a way that, to discover if there's a way we can put a wharf through our village somewhere, it's a study and we're gonna have to pay for it, so that's not gonna be in that budget.
I think there's a lot of planning, so I think we need to sit down and come up with a plan, and then perhaps, if not next year's budget, the year after. But we need to see where we can go with it.
We stay status quo on the number for now? Okay. Okay, so when we get to the arena, again, we're personnel. I'm gonna leave Councillor Gutierrez McDonald, maybe speak to the fairs and festivals and community events, which she sits on that committee, so we'll see what.
Okay, I know that, I know that we have a budget for all these events, and we've literally not really done much. We did have a mini Beldoon Days, and I think we came in with $1,300. We have something that happens when we do an event, especially with our beer gardens. And it was just discovered this year by us that the money from the door does not go back into our pot or back to the village. It goes towards the firefighters. I was unaware of this, so anytime that we have a beer gardens, that money that's from the ticket sales does not go back into us. It goes to the firefighters, and I don't know how that started, but I think maybe we could think about changing that so that that money can come back into our funds for our fairs and festivals, and within our and help us in our budget for future planning for these events. I don't know how anybody feels about that. Was anybody aware that the door money went to the firemen?
I am.
Sorry?
I have a history of it.
You have a history with the door money?
Dating back to 2005.
Okay. And why did that happen? I'm just curious. I wasn't aware of it, so I only found out this year that that's where it went when we did our mini Beldoon Days.
The beer gardens began with the Chaleur Sports. At one time, the arena was built and by a group that built the arena called Chaleur Sports. The village of Beldoon paid the property tax, and Chaleur Sports was to pay the tax on the building. By 2005, come to find out, they walked in and put the padlock on the arena. Taxes hadn't been paid. Council turned around and arranged with the province of New Brunswick for a lump sum payment to turn around and pay the back taxes and take over the arena. Chaleur Sports was dissolved in 2005. When Chaleur Sports was dissolved, they normally did the beer gardens and used the funding for projects they had. The door money at the beer gardens, they used that for fundings they did. So lo and behold, 2005, Chaleur Sports advised they're not doing the beer gardens. So the council of the day required basically somebody to take it over. The Royal Canadian Legion took it over, the Ladies Auxiliary. So the funding at the door went as a fundraiser for basically a non-charitable organization, which was the Legion. That continued until 2014, I believe. Did it 9 years, so 2014. 2014, there was a request from another organization that said that, the Legion have been doing it quite a while, why not give somebody else a crack? The council of the day seen fit to make that happen. By 2016, it basically went from the arena, because there wasn't enough volume to have the beer gardens at the arena, to the rec center. When it went to the rec center, they had nobody to basically, because the previous organization that made the request did it for 2 years and basically didn't make much money or lost money actually, I guess. But with that said, then it went to the rec center because there was only basically a couple of hundred people attending the dances that, or the beer gardens that at that time. So they needed somebody to look after it. That's when the fire department took it over. So since about 2016, the fire department has been doing it. The beer gardens has always been, the funding at the door was given to an organization within the village. So from 2005 to 2014, it was done by the Legion. From 2014 to 2016, it was done by the Skidoo Club. And then from 2016 on, it's been done by the fire department.
And this is all through the Beldoon days?
Yes,
Is that how?
well, the Beldoon Days Committee, I mean, basically, needs somebody to run the beer gardens. You gotta buy beer, you gotta have people at the door, you need to hire security, so on and so on. And that's where all the funding basically had to go in the sense, and that's why the door receipts were given to that group. So they basically cover their expenses, and what's ever left is basically the profits.
So during that time, when other committees were doing it, were they paying for the band?
No, the Village of Beldoon paid the bands. The only expense that the group had was the door receipts are yours. So you had to look after your beer garden, you had to look after the beer garden and security. That was the only expense you had. Security was over $1,000 because you had to have, back then there was 400 and 500 people in the arena, whatever you needed, 10, 12 people basically to make sure you had enough muscle around to deal with the issues. In all my years of dealing with it, which was 9 years, there was only two issues during that 9 years.
So in this case then, where now it's being put on by a non-profit committee.
Yeah, well, that's why the fire department does it. What she's referring to, where does the money go? The money's going back into the fire department's coffers for events they do, that type of thing. So they look after the beer gardens at the rec center. They buy the beer and everything, if I'm, and they get the bar. But they're also doing the door now. So the door also goes to them.
Okay, so at other events that we have pub nights and things like that, they don't get the door, they just get the bar. So I'm just confused about, because we're going to be taking over all of these events, I want to make sure that the door money goes back into our, not our pockets, but in our events budget. It returns back to the village. That's all. I wasn't aware of this. I'm glad you explained it to me, so.
You'll need to discuss that with the fire department, whether they'll say want to be involved, whether, I mean.
Oh, I'm not taking it away. I'm just, I wasn't aware of how it developed.
Yeah, that's how
But
it
what
developed.
I'm saying is they do the bar at different functions as well, but they don't get that door money. That's all I was
It
saying.
came about in 2005 when everything came to a head over the taxes for the arena. And then when Chalor Sports basically dissolved, it became like an event for charitable organizations or non-charitable organizations to organize, and it was a way to fundraise.
So
Okay,
I'm
so-
just checking this budget then, that we have for 2021 was 40,000, and then there was an $8,000 on top of that. That was for the seniors and pub nights and summer music. Is that what I'm reading here?
Yes.
Okay, so that's a total of like 48,000. Oh, I think that should be
Okay.
plenty. If we get back to putting events on.
Okay, in terms of parks and playgrounds personnel, that's normally the students that we hire. If there's one at the campground, one at the Sandbear, if there's any here, you know, so that's the student one. This year, we were like around 21,000 on the expenditure, but we did receive a bit of a more reimbursement from the federal government and the provincial government, so it kind of offset that extra cost. So I think if we leave the 20 in there, we'd still be fine. It usually hires about 3 or 4 students for the summer within that particular budget. Daryl has some in his budget for the rec and wellness. And then, like I said, the other would be under the student subsidy for the organizations that hire. Unless council has other input on that, if we're good with that, we can just stay there. Parks and playgrounds, that's where any reference to anything to do with what we consider parks and playgrounds, maintenance, it's mostly all maintenance, tractor work, and if there's insurance and property tax on some of those properties, there's a lot of it is the equipment maintenance, tractors and things like that do a lot there. As Deputy Mayor Burke referred to, he may like to see those benches and street lights and those things to be able to be done at the Memorial Park. If he wished to increase that budget to accommodate that, that would be the place to probably do it. Although I could say that I believe fairly confidently that if that was something we could get this year, there would be money in the budget from somewhere to accommodate that.
If we can do it this year, it'd be an honor for me to see it completed.
I really think, with pretty strong confidence that we're gonna see money surplus,
Okay.
and I think if we could organize it to get it done this year, it's something we hopefully could get done real fast, and maybe have it ready for Armistice, which would be your Remembrance Day.
Yep.
So if you wish me to reach out and see what I
Please.
can get done for you, I will
Please.
do
I have a
that
question
and
for you.
bring it in with the cost.
What is the tennis court considered? Is it considered?
That would be within that Parks and Playground as well.
Okay. The tennis court, I think I'm the only one in the community that plays the sport. The tennis court is being wasted. It's an asset. But we are starting to see an increase in pickleball players. And it wouldn't be a lot of money to convert that tennis court to a pickleball court.
Yeah, I believe the record will.
We've talked about that before.
I believe he had.
So anyway, just wanted to throw it out there. Might be something council would consider, because I think,
Yeah, actually, our Rec and Well had noted that in there. Like you said, he believes also it was an easy conversion by adding pickleball lines to the existing court and possibly small adjustments to netting, so maybe it's something I'll ask him if he can research and get some pricing
have
on
to
for our
fix-
next budget.
you'd have to fix up the asphalt.
Yeah,
in bad
that
shape.
would be the big cost. So maybe, I'll see if we can find some kind of an estimate at least, if we know for next year. I'll just put here pickleball court. Okay, so
Oh,
I'll see
sorry,
if we can.
also in parks and playgrounds, I think the campground is kind of in dire need of fire pits. There are 6 fire pits left for 30 campers. It's first come, first served, so
They just bought a bunch. There was a bunch, is that the ones that were just ordered?
oh, I don't know.
Yeah, there was some ordered there, they came in later in the season, but they got them,
I had to be awfully late because I was talking to one of the campers in August, middle of August, and that was one of the recommendations she made, is that each campsite have a fire pit. So whether it's already been done or should be done.
Let me see how, I think they had a hard time getting them, so they probably only got a certain amount of them. But what I'll do is I'll follow up, I believe, if I remember, Nicole and Daryl might have been involved, and well as CAO Ferguson. So I'll ask what they got and what the cost was, and then if they want to add, but it would go into the campground budget,
Okay,
operating budget, okay?
yep, thank you.
But I will check that out.
Also, I'm wondering too, for the fairs and festival, I
Just,
wonder if
I
the
just want to
wellness-
ask a question on the parks and I see here, it's a general budget, but when you start looking at the breakdown of that budget, I see that it says parks and playground vehicle number 12, parks and playground tractor number 14. These must be awful big tractors to be costing that much a year.
There is some of them that's pretty huge tractors. We've had some that had to have repairs this year substantially.
Are
So,
they the
yeah.
ones using that at the campground?
No, this is not camp, Parks and
Okay.
Playground is not the campground. The campground is someplace, the campground is in another budget.
Oh,
Campground
okay.
is under, if you look under environmental, we talked about campground and we didn't do the, Jack River Campground operations, 40,000. So we just.
So the
that-
tractor, for example, that Earl uses to cut the shoulder of the grass,
Some of those
would-
big.
would be there.
Some of those big equipments are in
Yeah,
there,
okay.
yeah. So yeah, if you get the campground, if we do wanna expend more money there, it'll be in, it's under environmental category. So with the, sorry, Councillor Carmichael, I guess you said fairs and festivals.
Yeah, I'm just wondering if the there must be grants out there that we can do this, that our health and wellness coordinator could look to see, like, we're spending $40,000. It would be nice if, you know, if there was a grant out there that we could get for $5,000, $10,000 to do that. I'm not sure, because that was one of the discussions when we decided to go with the event committee, that, you know, that we would look into grants to be able to do some of these functions.
A lot of times there's grants that would be open, like, I know there's a grant there if it's a special anniversary year. There is one grant out there for that because we've applied for that in the past. But a lot of times the grants is normally, if it's nonprofit organizations or if it's a separate entity of a committee that's set up, they have access to apply. Where I don't know if the municipality sometimes has, but it doesn't stop them, your reckon well, from looking into that and finding out. But I know in the past, that was our experience with some of it. It was open to other organizations, not so much municipal, except for special milestone years, anniversary years. But I put a note here too. Okay? So the Parks and Playground other, again, can put the, okay, I know we're over this year, but like I said, I know we've had repairs and stuff on the tractors, which really exceeded what our expectations were in the budget. So I'm gonna leave it at the 30 and hope our equipment is up to speed right there now with the repairs. Library is pretty straightforward. We have I believe our new personnel started today for the first day. And so that budget stays, and we'd never exceeded that amount of the budget for books and operations and things like that. In fact, this year we were down a bit because there's quite a stretch that we didn't have a librarian. All summer we had a student, and I must say again, that student does a phenomenal job there in the summer. A really, really good student. So that takes care of the recreation budget for now. Now we're into the fiscal. There's things here that council really have no control over. The long-term interest payment's gonna be around 45. I'm waiting, and the principal payments will be around 183. We have no debentures to sell. We won't have any short-term interest, unless we're planning on doing some more borrowing, which I'm gonna bring up the point. When you talked about this building, when we had authority to borrow 2.5 million, we borrowed 2.2. We still have an outstanding authority of $300,000 that we could still borrow on that authorization. So the question I have to ask council is, do you plan on doing anything else to this building that that $300,000 would be required to be borrowed? If not, it's at some point we have to make a motion to council to release that so that it takes it out of our name and they don't count it against our debt charges. Like, you know, it calculates into some things, and for us, it's still, we have that authority, so they calculate it in those numbers when they look at Balloon having a death or a possible death. So I don't expect you to answer that tonight, but the question is, do you plan on using that $300,000 that we have authority to do something else on this building or not? And if you don't, we'll make a motion to ask them to remove it from our authority.
I'm just wondering, we have a room down the hallway here that's not done with outside walls, and that side on the other wing, that's not done. I'm just wondering if it wouldn't be a good time to do the outside walls, like to finish those up. I don't know what the cost would be, but just a suggestion.
I believe there was a cost estimate done back, I believe it was last year. For that simple thing, I believe it was for just some, the structure, the outside walls, whatever would have to be done for there. I'm not sure, it might have included flooring, but I know there was an estimate submitted for some of the structural, like just a shell, to do something with the shell on the inside of there. I'd have to see if I could find it for you.
So, yeah, we can always discuss it with council and decide if we're going to do it, because the money, the 300,000 is still available, and it would be a good time to do it, because I think anybody that's going to want either one of those rooms or areas are going to want the outside walls at least done, and it would be probably their responsibility to do anything else that needs to be done.
Why would we want to borrow 300,000 more when we're sitting on $2 million in our capital reserve?
I'm just suggesting it. It doesn't have to go through. I'm just thinking while the money is there, that it would be a time to do it. But if you guys want to let go of that money, that's fine with me also.
I mean, I'm not against doing the project, I'm just, you know, I mean, it's one thing to say, you know, we haven't got the money and we need to borrow money, but the other side of the coin is we don't need to borrow money. It's in the capital reserve, and if that's a project that council wants to move forward with, I believe we should take it out of the capital reserve.
Okay, so I'll give you some, again, as a whole council, I'll give you some time to think about it. It doesn't have to be this month that council, or next month that council makes that decision, but I was hoping by the end of the year so that I could tell the capital board that either we're going to use it or we're not going to use it. And so I'll give you some time to mull that around among yourselves, and let me know if any time one of you want to put it on the agenda. Okay, thank you. So in this budget, then that takes care of bank service fees were around 1,000. Last year, when the budget came in to be balanced, we were still at around 60-some thousand. That council still did not know exactly where they wanted to expend that. So we always had the option to budget to put in capital reserve. So that's where they opted to put the extra 62,000 last year. Doesn't necessarily mean that that's what's going to go in there. It just balanced the budget. So I don't see us putting anything in there yet until we see where we are with this budget. If you notice down the general capital fund here from previous year, like it had this 15,000 of 804,000, which is that section of the road I was talking about. If we got approved, we would have had to pay 15% of that 804,000. But every year we were budgeting for that. Every year we were not getting approval. So the idea was we put the money in reserve, and if we ever got the approval for a section of road, we would use reserve money to do it. And you wouldn't have to keep budgeting it every year and waiting for an answer. If you had an answer, the money is sitting, the 15% of that 800 or so is sitting in reserve to be used for that purpose. As is the trail money we talked about for ATV trails. It's in the budget. It's in your capital reserve money set aside, not having to be budgeted every year. So this is where, if you had any general capital fund, if you had any particular projects that of a capital nature, equipment, something that has got a lifespan of more than 1 year and exceeds a certain amount of money is considered capital. So if there's anything of that nature that you're thinking of spending out of the operating fund, this is where it would go.
So would that include accessibility for the campground?
If you thought that project could be all paid for out of your general operating fund. But if you wanted to do the engineering part, which you would require, I don't know what that, you could put a figure in there if you had a pretty good idea what you thought. And that expenditure could come out of that capital fund because you're planning on doing the work maybe in another year or the same year. But yes, you could budget for those type of things in there. Again, you don't have to really.
That project of, I mean, when you consider the village of Baldoon does not have a beach that the public has access to. We do not have it. With that said, that's why the beach at the campground becomes critical. Charlo, they get driftwood along that coastline every single year. They go in there with the tractor, they clean that all up, pick up the driftwood, and it's gone. Now, with that said, that area needs a lot of work to bring it up to, say, standard. But the other side of the coin is that if you were to talk to somebody who's lived in this community more than 25, 30 years, 25, 30 years ago, they were using that beach every day. Now they can't even have access to it. They can't even get through the gate, you know? But that's why this project, as far as I'm concerned, I would support that and work hand and foot to basically come up with the design and turn around and spend the funding required to have the public, that where they could come down without disturbing our trailer, the people in the trailer park, which means we may need to realign the fencing there. But with that said, the public, people of Beldoon should have access to a beach, and it should be a beach we're proud of.
Yes, actually, we also have Rorty's Point, that it's a beautiful beach that would be nice to do something with. Those would be two beautiful areas that people could go to our shoreline and be able to enjoy our beautiful beaches.
So does anybody know why the access to the beach in Jacket River, like right now, for example, that stop sign is put across, the chain is put across, meaning you can't even walk down? Why is that? Like, why is access denied once the park is closed? Is that something we can change by saying, go up there and remove it?
As far as I'm good, as I mentioned, I don't have a problem realigning the fencing so that the people in the trailer park aren't bothered by people going to the beach, roaming around the trailer park. They go there for privacy, but it should be accessible to people from the community. The people from the community should be able to walk down there and walk down to the beach without having to worry about, you know, what it's like. There were some major issues there with pollution. I mean, what was happening was, well, basically there are 3 contributaries hitting the Bay of Chaleur in our city limits. All 3 contributaries were polluted. So it became a question that down at that beach, there was pollution, and there were signs put up by the Board of Health that there was no swimming and everything like that. But at this moment in time, that's not our problem. You know, I say not our problem, I'm saying that's no longer an issue. So the beach could be opened, could be brought to a standard where, you know, people can drive their cars down there and, you know, because it's all along the edge of the campground. It's not like they got to go into where all the campers are and then go down over the hill. The entrance to that campground used to be basically right where you enter there. You turn a sharp right and you go right down. So all we need to do is realign that so that people could turn around and drive down there, park their cars down there and enjoy a day at the beach. And I don't believe it's that complicated, and I think that it's not all that expensive.
Did you have something else that you wanted to add?
I just wanted to say, so the reason cars can't drive down there is because the road is, right, okay.
So is that gonna take, putting some money in tonight? Do we need to, or could we,
You probably have to get a little bit of research done on from, if you're looking for what the cost of the engineering would be.
Okay.
I know definitely the cost of the construction part would probably be beyond what especially when you get to the road section. So, I could talk to CAO Ferguson and see if he can, talk to get some kind of
Okay.
an estimate of engineering, of what it would cost for engineering work on it.
Even if they park their cars where the parking lot is up, you know, you park your car there and you have a nice little walkway down. You know, that'd be a lot less expensive than having it all paved and everything like that. Nice walkway down to the beach, but they park their cars up top. I mean, maybe it's something we need to look at both options just to see what it would cost.
okay, let's take Clerk Treasurer Cormier's suggestion and ask CAO Ferguson to look into some engineering options and
start there.
Either one is make some sort of a much easier accessible walking.
Plan A and a plan B.
Access, that's not so steep,
Right.
or a driving one.
Right.
Give us what you think
Yeah.
it would cost the engineer both of those,
Okay.
okay? I'll
I
ask
know
him
that
to
the
work-
hill is very steep. It's a killer hill. I walk it often, and I'm telling you, going up that hill is, this old girl can't do it much now.
Spent a lot of high school Friday nights trying to get up that hill. I can tell you firsthand and stuff.
So, right.
Okay, so what's next, clerk treasurer?
So that brings us to the end of the last section of the budget again. The major issue right there now seems to be the categories that fill in as unemployment personnel side. I guess council will have to determine how they want to do that and when. And then I would say after that, we've definitely got to wait till we get numbers back from the province on things like the tax base. Our Regional Service Commission has to get me numbers. Policing costs have to come in. So there's some of those numbers that I just got to wait on. But your personnel seems to be the most vacant one in there right there now that you guys would have to meet and talk about somehow. And that would be within a closed session. And I'm not sure how. Maybe it's something you want to do with CEO Ferguson. May want to, okay?
Our cost of assessment is based on a percentage from what the province charge, eh? I believe it's 1.75%.
The cost of assessment? Oh, the cost of assessment is, it's not quite, no, it's a little bit more than 1.7. It works out, I can't remember if it's 1.96 for every $100 of assessment or something like that, so.
Is it not a true statement? Well, it is, because I read it in the paper, that the province is going to reassess all of the properties in the province of New Brunswick to bring them up to realistic market values? So,
Didn't receive any information on that formally from the province. I think it's something they do on a regular basis in terms of, but to do a whole overall in 1 year, I've never seen them do that because of the HR on their side, whether they have the personnel able to do it for the whole province in 1 year. So usually it's municipality by municipality, and usually they try to do it every 10 years. But with the reform, it might be something that they're really pushing to get done all in 1 year.
no.
So I'm looking for. Nope, for tonight, that's, I guess that covers everything, until council want to set another meeting for other.
We should set another meeting for the staffing. We can wait a couple of weeks to do that because it'll be a while for the numbers. We can maybe do that, come up with that at the committee of hold.
What about, so next Monday?
Is our committee of hold.
And we have somebody coming in, I believe, prior to make a presentation.
Then we have the event committee meeting. The 12th probably will have that, 11 or the 12th. Whatever everybody's available, we can schedule it. We can.
I would say they're really in a good situation right there now. Like I said, it's the province, and I've been advised by them by email that we should start seeing our assessment, our tax base coming in soon. And so there'll be other numbers that come in with that. It's just I have to go after placing DTI and a few of these others to get confirmed, but. Yeah.
Would we be is it too long to wait till mid-October for the next one?
I would say not, because your deadline for getting your budget in is mid-November. So by the 15th of November, we have to have it in. So if we can't pass the budget at the regular meeting in October, it would just mean that council may have to have a special meeting.
We always do
The
that.
first week, you could have it a special meeting before your committee of whole in November
Yeah.
to pass the budget with a
Okay.
motion, right?
Yeah.
So long as we can meet that November 15th deadline, I think he's in a good shape right there now, with some of it, and I'll send you this copy once I get it all done, and you can think about some other things, but I
Okay.
think he's not in bad shape, just
Time-wise.
waiting for those
Just wondering
other
about-
numbers.
Just wondering time.
Yeah.
So maybe come up with a few dates, Council Carmichael?
We could either do it the 20th of October.
Is it, okay,
Or the 25th of October. The 25th, Brenda should have her numbers by then.
25th.
I would certainly hope so, that the problem's gone.
Let's do that,
Staffing and,
yeah.
and
Okay.
then we
So, 25th of October then. Let's do that. Okay? 25th of October? 7 o'clock? 7 or 6. Go 7, right?
the 25th, you said?
Well, let's go 6:30, how about that?
Yeah, I like that. I like a little earlier.
Okay?
If anybody has a conflict with that, just let us know. You do? Okay. If something comes up, just let us know. We'll work around it. Yeah,
That's mostly us and the CAO because of.
Right,
Mostly us and the CAO because we're discussing salaries.
that's right.
Yeah, and I'd probably have to come in to finalize
Yeah.
all the other stuff with you, but the personnel stuff, if you wish to just have the CAO, that's fine. You know,
Okay.
I can get him to do that.
right on.
Yep.
Okay, so can we get a motion to adjourn?
I move that we adjourn at
Yeah.
8:15.
Okay, seconder,
I'll second it.
on the question, all those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Yeah. There we go. Thank you, everybody, for watching.